John's got a good nuke. All these nukes are good. We're having an extremely good take. I think we've had 100%. I'm going to go back and check that one where I didn't spot a queen, but I think she's there. And that's very unusual. I know better than to brag about that. About the time you start bragging about something that changes. But what we're not seeing is the big bold patterns that we saw in the spring. There's absolutely zero pollen in these combs. There's a bit of a nectar flow. The bees are backfilling the brood nest in these nukes, and we're just not seeing the queens performing like we did a month ago. It can kind of fool you. You want to think that the queen maybe is not very good, but you got to take into consideration the circumstances. Let's look at this one, see what they're doing. So let's see, we put these cells in on 6-2. This is 7-7, so it's really almost 5 weeks. Hopefully I just didn't pick the first dud for the video. We'll see. You can see they're drawing out comb nicely. A little bit of sourwood and clover coming in. The queens aren't fat and plump like they were a month ago either. Several of them that I found have just been walking around on the bottom or the wall of the nuke because they're not really laying. This one definitely has a queen. Again, there's just zero pollen in these combs. Pollen is the most stimulative thing for brood rearing. Without any incoming pollen, these Caucasians and Carniolans tend to shut down a bit. In some cases, shut down completely. Italians will tend to keep going even when they don't have pollen coming in. More than the Caucasians and the Carniolans for sure. Another thing that is beginning to happen with a lack of pollen is the bees experience, to a small degree, a bit of malnutrition. It's not bad, but it's there. So someone might ask, why don't we put pollen patties on these nukes? And I wouldn't dare this time of year. We're starting to see a few hive beetles, and putting pollen patties on is just asking for trouble. The next real pollen flow won't come till the 3rd or 4th week in August, when the early goldenrod varieties start. And I feel pretty confident that the bees will be fine until then. Yeah, I just don't see hardly any eggs in this thing. There's some sealed brood from a week or two ago, but they're barely laying anything at all. They're making a little sourwood honey though. Sourwood honey is actually real good overwintering feed because it's a fairly light honey. It's very low in dextrose, which is what makes honey crystallize. So it's good in that respect. I'm going to go back through it a second time before I completely disassemble it. See if she's on the wall or the bottom. When they're actively laying, they're 90% of the time they're right in the brood, but when laying is really decreased like it is right now, they could be wandering around anywhere. I use an Australian term. I say they're taking a walkabout. They're just wandering around. Really slows down the queen finding process. This is going to be the last round of queen collection for this nuke. We've got 4 distinct groups and dates and timing in this location, and we got 2 more weeks of collecting queens, and then we're going to be done. I don't want these nukes to be continuing to raise queens into August and September. I want them to get queen right and start getting in good shape for the winter. I used to make a lot of splits in August and even into September, and I was always trying to work real hard to get them built up and stimulated to get enough bees in them for winter. I'm kind of getting over that these days. The last nucs we make in this area, for me, is really late July. When I say make nucs, I guess I'm really talking about these queen mating nucs, getting the queen collected and then another cell put in them. The last ones we'll do will be the 3rd or 4th week in July, and then we'll be done with that. That'll give the bees plenty of time to build up for the winter. We're also done splitting these things. You know, a month ago the nucs were growing so fast that, you know, if we went through 20 nucs, we'd end up with 3 or 4 extras because we had to split and take brood out. That's not going to be the case anymore. Okay, I'm going to tear this thing apart. She's probably on the wall or the bottom. You know, I don't care for baby nucs, but this is one time when baby nucs would be good because it'd be a lot easier to find the queen. She's got a lot of sealed brood, but there's almost no eggs at all. You know, at first glance you'd think this thing was queenless or something. And then I sell these queens to somebody else. I guess we got to warn them, you know, that the queens had kind of shut down. Don't expect them to come out of the gate rip-roaring. And the other noticeable thing is they're not as big, they're not fat and plump like they would have been a month ago. Real tempting to taste that honey. And then another thing I have to admit, these Caucasian queens are a little harder to find. They don't stick out like the golden Italians, you know. Some of those Cordovan and golden style Italians, they stick out like a little neon sign walking around on the comb. These Carney Owens and Caucasians are definitely not that way. It helps to have the sunlight shining in the box. There she is. She's on the bottom. So Ed, if you're watching, Ed Coleman, you just ordered 10 queens. If you're watching, these queens are for you. Oh no, whoop. You gotta be careful, you could squish her. Okay, I guess that's about all I can say about these nucs. The colonies are the same way. You know, the colonies, their brood rearing is greatly diminished at this time. And it fools people. They think they want to split right after the sourwood flow because the boxes are full of bees, not realizing that 3 weeks later, colonies are going to look a lot different. You know, without a lot of brood being reared right now, the older bees will die off, and a month from now the colonies will be much smaller than they are today. That's another reason I've learned to not split, you know, past July. Both the nuc struggles to get ready for winter, and the mother colony is depleted too when you take all her brood away.